the irresistible in-mail or connection request.
Welcome again to LinkedIn to Lead Generation with Hannah Tai. Our four-part series is wrapping up here about how you can be increasing response rates and the receptiveness to your networking on LinkedIn. So yeah, the irresistible in-mail and connection request. What are we going to talk about in this episode, Hannah?
So we're going to talk about crafting your invite or your connection request in a way that people will actually be much more receptive to opening up that dialogue with you.
Well, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it, right? Otherwise, we're wasting our time. So in prepping for this episode, you told me we're going to hit 3 keys to success. So let me do a quick rundown. Personalize, so that you're building rapport, step 1. 2, what is the win-win that you can put on the table here to make that connection happen? And 3, give away something valuable to increase your credibility and sincerity. So let's take those from the top. They all sound incredibly important. Personalize. We've talked about this before. It's so important. So what should people be doing?
Right. So you want to make sure that when you go to reach out to your prospect that, like we said before, you're doing your homework, okay? So there's a reason that you are reaching out. So maybe you have a common connection. Maybe there's something in that profile that you've seen that you can relate to in some way. Maybe there's something that has occurred in the news that you're seeing in your, if you're following their company, okay, and you're seeing that in your updates, and you can reach out. Maybe they've had a success recently or a job change or any of those sorts of things, okay? So you actually have shown them that you have done your homework. So you want to put that into your either in-mail by saying, hey, I noticed that your company is, poised for this next stage of growth. You're obviously having, probably hiring new people or whatever. We have this great thing, that we offer. There's a trial right now, whatever. So make sure that you are actually giving them an offer that might be helpful to this next stage of growth. But you talk about beforehand, that you have seen that they are doing this. Congratulate them on that. Maybe try and build that rapport another way by saying, we've helped John at XYZ company, who you're also connected to, and think that this would also be a great fit for, this next level that you're trying to reach.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know this in our heads, but sometimes you just don't do it because you're moving 100 miles an hour and you're kind of spending a few minutes on LinkedIn and you're kind of in a rush, and so you forget to be human, to build rapport, to find that common ground, and then you wonder why you're not getting those response rates that we've been talking about in a whole series of episodes here. So yeah, make sure you're taking this time. I don't think we can repeat this enough, Hannah, because people do kind of wonder why they're not getting the feedback or getting people to link back to them, and it can be this basic. Hey, did you look at their profile really? Did you really find that common ground? Did you find something to kind of hook into and start the conversation that way, right?
Right, exactly. And even flattering them, just saying, hey, I noticed that you did this, or that you're on the member of this board and that board and whatever, and I also have worked on whatever it is. Make sure you look through their profile, look through their recommendations if you have to, and just see what those pieces are that you can build that rapport with, because people like to be complimented. If you have that common person that you do have in common, make sure you reach out to them first and say, hey, Joe, I'm thinking about reaching out to this guy. Do you know them? Because God forbid, you say, oh, and we've worked with Joe Smith, and he's like, well, I don't know who Joe.
We had or they had a terrible experience together or something, and you just stepped into it when
Exactly. So reach out to that person first, obviously.
Well, that makes so much sense, Hannah, because what a great way to build rapport, and is if I've talked to Joe first, and then I say, hey, I was just talking with Joe, and you came up in conversation, and he suggested I reach out to you. That's a much warmer approach than, hey, I think I can sell you something.
Exactly. You got it.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's a great segue, though, into your second point, which is really exactly that. I mean, where is the win-win? Have you identified the win-win potential of this relationship before you send that in-mail or that connection request, right?
Right. So, when you send that connection request, you want to give them a reason to connect to you, okay? So, again, you want to make sure that whatever it is that you are looking to build with them actually makes sense for who they are and where they're looking to go, okay? So if you have a solution that's, going to be helpful, you can talk about that. If, say, you're not quite sure, you can say, I'd like to talk to you about, I've noticed that you have X, Y, and Z here, always looking to have synergistic relationships, with people, would love to, just keep in touch here, just a lighter touch, because you're not sure exactly where that's going to go. But, when you're reaching out to people, you should always, again, have something of value to offer them.
Right.
So you need to make sure that there's something that they're going to be receptive to. And if they're not receptive to it, that's okay. That's why maybe you create an in-mail as opposed to a connection request. Because if you do an in-mail and they don't get back to you, then they're probably not going to be a good connection for you.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and this kind of even it brings these two bullet points together, because the more time you can spend obviously personalizing and looking into this person and really finding that common ground and the win-win, the more likely you're going to get a response. I mean, we all get these things on LinkedIn where you can tell that you're just part of a shotgun. You call it spray and pray, right? I mean, you can feel it immediately versus the person who's even taken a few minutes to kind of say, hey, look, this is what I do, and here's how I can see us working together, or how I can provide some value to you. Do you want to talk about it? I mean, even if I'm not open to doing that, I'm still much happier to receive that kind of message than the alternative, right?
Exactly.
All right, so let's finish up with your third bullet point, which we've touched on a little bit, but let's get specific then. So, give away something of value. Give me some examples of how you've seen people do that right, or some suggestions of how we can try to do that right.
Yeah. So when you reach out to someone in an email or a connection request, you can actually then give them a call to action for them to follow up and find out more about you. So maybe you do a light touch. And then, you say, oh, and by the way, here's my 5-part video series on, click here to get my 5-point video series on how people in, healthcare can still use social media effectively, or, whatever it is. It's always great to do that because, again, this person doesn't know you, so then they get to feel a little bit warmer towards you. If it's specific to the industry and some of the pain points that they are experiencing, those are the types of things that you want to, have in there. You don't, however, want to. I've actually seen sometimes where people do that, but then they list, 12 things that they've done.
Which means you haven't done your homework, right? I mean,
yeah, it's like overkill. So, just one thing that's specific to them and their industry and those pain points that you think you can effectively help them with.
Well, the other thing I love about what you're saying, Hannah, is that, I don't know about you, but in my experience, I mean, a lot of times people are too quick to want to reach out and say, hey, give me a call or let's get connected, because they don't know you yet, and you haven't really kind of almost earned the right to have that direct connection yet. So you may be connected, but you may not be talking. We may not be having a one-on-one conversation yet. By giving something away and showing that you've actually looked, found something relevant, given it to them, but now they get to interact with you in a way that they can control, so they don't feel like they're going to be pitched or anything like that.
Exactly.
Giving them your video series. We're doing this 4-part series. If you were on LinkedIn right now and you wanted to help, you targeted someone who wants to increase their response rate, you can say, hey, here's my 4-part series, and you can invite them to kind of check that out. Now they get to make their own judgment about whether they want to have that consultation with Hannah, because you can't push them you can only teach them, give them great content, and then they come away saying, hey, yeah, I see that she really can help me. I do want to talk to Hannah, right?
Exactly. And even from a personality fit, too, because, that's really important. So,
very important,
yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Great. Well, we are wrapping up this series on just this, on how you can increase response rates, receptiveness when you're connecting and networking on LinkedIn, and you better be connecting and working with LinkedIn because it's a really powerful tool. That's what this show is all about. That is what Hannah Tai is all about. You can reach out to her at Chatterbox social media. In this episode, though, we talked about the irresistible InMail and the connection request, how you can actually make that really work and increase, again, response rates. So we talked about personalizing and building rapport up front, making sure that you've identified a good win-win so that you can present that to somebody in that opening of building this relationship. And then, hey, great, have something of value that you're showing up at the door with so that you can give them that credibility piece and they can really see what you have to offer. Excellent stuff, Hannah. We're going to keep doing other mini-series on all different angles and topics and deepening people's expertise on LinkedIn because it is so powerful. You're so generous to be sharing all this great stuff with you. So I want people to connect with you and get even more of it. So you are at chatterboxsocialmedia.com. You are there to coach and consult and help people really use the power of LinkedIn if they're building a sales team, if they're out there prospecting. That's what this is all about. So get over to Chatterbox Social Media, get on Hannah's mailing list, check out her blog posts, check out all these different pieces of content that she's creating that are out there to really help you. And if you need to personalize it now and figure out how to apply it to you, then reach out to her directly, right? That's a good thing, Hannah, right? All right.
That's right.
So Hannah, until our next series, I'm going to sign off and say this has been great. I've been really learning a great deal, and I know other people have too. So see you next time.
Thanks, Mark.